And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the second part of the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about the Tokyo series once again. I know I brought it up briefly last year, last week, but yeah. So yeah, what a great start to the segment here. But yeah. So the Dodgers and the Cubs will be playing against each other, 2 game set. So it starts tomorrow, very early in the morning. Depending on where you, well, either way, it's going to be early. It's 6:10 my time in the morning, 6:10 a.m. both days. So how we're going to do it is we'll recap the game the following day. So the game tomorrow will recap on Wednesday, and then the other game will recap. The second game will recap on Thursday because it's very early in the morning, and I will be honest, I am not going to get up to watch the game. And you're probably like, "Oh, that's lame." I mean, maybe I'll if I happen to be up, maybe I'll turn it on. I might just DVR it. I think I mentioned that last week. But two very good pitching matchups to start it off for us. So the first game, you have um, two guys coming into their second season in the major leagues here, in Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Shota Imanaga. And Yamamoto last year, 7-2, 3 ERA. Spent some time on the injured list, but was solid and of course pitched well in the playoffs. And then last year for Shota Imanaga, he went 15-3 with a 2.91 ERA. So a very good first season for him with the Cubs. And then the second game, you got Roki Sasaki making his major league debut against Justin Steele. And Justin Steele last year went 5-5 with a 3.07 ERA. He spent some time on the injured list. Actually got hurt first game of the year last year. So two very good pitching matchups. Sasaki, that's something that baseball fans are going to be locked into. How is he going to do in his first start with the Dodgers? Because last year Yamamoto, his first start was not great, but obviously settled in, and look what happened with the Dodgers. So a lot of people are going to be focusing in on Sasaki and what he's able to do in his first start. But I do want to talk about the Cubs a little bit more because I think this is a big year for them, and I think especially this is a big year for Craig Counsell because the Cubs signed him to a massive deal. They let go of David Ross, their previous manager, to bring him in, and they were hoping that the Cubs were going to take that next step last year. Now they ended up finishing 83-79, tied with the Cardinals for second place in the NL Central last year. Brewers ended up taking that division, but this year, the Cubs need to have a good year, in my opinion. You brought in Craig Counsell to be a difference maker, and some of the moves this offseason, the biggest move that they made. Now they traded Cody Bellinger to the Yankees. They got Cody Poteet for pitching depth, but the big move that they made was the acquisition of Kyle Tucker. I think Kyle Tucker is going to have a good season for the Cubs, and he's going to be one of the top free agents, if not the top free agent, going into the offseason. He's going to have a big. You want to hope that he's going to have a big year. I think he will do well with the Cubs. I'm surprised that the Astros traded him. I mean, I guess they weren't going to get him back. They weren't going to re-sign him, so they figured might as well just trade him now and get some assets back for him. So I guess that was their logic. But now you got Jose Altuve playing in the outfield, which I don't understand. I'm curious to see how that goes throughout the year. But he did misjudge a ball the other day in the outfield. So I don't know. That move is a curious one for me. But they trade Kyle Tucker. I think he's going to be good. They also got Ryan Presley, who was the setup guy to Josh Hader last year for the Astros. But Presley was their closer for years, and then they got Josh Hader, and that's why Presley was in the in the setup role. So, we'll see what happens. I mean, for the Cubs, I think, they could definitely compete in this division, the Central, because the Central is not great. I mean, I think most people are going to say the Brewers are going to win it again. Um, but, you got the Reds also. I think they could be a better team because now they bring in Terry Francona, which I thought was a surprise. I thought Terry Francona was done managing, but he comes back, and they got a lot of young players on their team. So, I think the Reds could be a problem. The Cardinals, I don't think are going to be very good. They're going to be, they're going to be selling off pieces. I mean, Arenado is definitely going to be on another team by the time we get to the trade deadline. Um, maybe the Pirates a full year with Skeens, they could be a little bit better, but I think for the Cubs, this is a big year for them, and they gotta make the playoffs this year. Otherwise, Craig Counsell experiment's not looking good so far. But then as for the Dodgers, I mean, we've talked about them several times since I started doing this show. Actually, one thing with the Dodgers, so I don't know if Mookie Betts is going to be available for this. I think he's dealing with a bit of an illness, I want to say. As I always say, I want to do a quick fact check. So, yeah, so actually, Mookie Betts, so this is on NBC News. So, Mookie Betts has lost 15 pounds from lingering illness and won't play in Tokyo. So, Miguel Rojas will be starting at shortstop. So, we are not going to see Mookie Betts for both of these games. Now, Dave Roberts said on Monday, today, that Betts is starting to feel better, but has lost nearly 15 pounds and still trying to get rehydrated and gain strength. So, yeah, he's really trying to overcome something. Well, hopefully everything's all right, but like I said, Dave Roberts said he's getting better. So, yeah, that's an interesting situation there. But Shohei Ohtani, homered in one of the exhibition games that the Dodgers have played. He's ready to go. Obviously, we're still waiting on him to, get back on the pitcher's mound. We'll see if May ends up happening. The May return ends up happening to the mound, but could be even further than that, further down the line. Dodgers are going to be really good. That's my analysis on the Dodgers. They are going to be really good once again. They signed a lot of guys this offseason and re-signed some guys. They signed Roki Sasaki. They signed Blake Snell. They signed Tanner Scott, one of the top relievers on the market. They signed Kirby Yates. I know they brought in Conforto to be, kind of a depth piece with the outfield. They also signed Ha-Sung Kim, a different Ha-Sung Kim than the one that was with the Padres. So they were busy. They were busy. They brought back Kershaw on a one-year deal. They have a lot of pitching depth. And I think when you see the amount of injuries to pitchers, you can see why the Dodgers have stockpiled so many. Last year, look at how they won the World Series, and it was a three-man rotation. Now you got all these guys coming back and guys that you signed. You signed Sasaki. You signed Blake Snell. Ohtani's going to make his return to the mound at some point. Tyler Glasnow is going to make his return to the mound. You got Yamamoto, and they got other guys as well. Kershaw, we'll say. And not a knock on Kershaw, but he's kind of going along for the ride at this point. Which, I mean, I'm completely okay with that. Clayton Kershaw is one of the greatest pitchers of this generation. And, the Dodgers are taking care of him. They're just going to keep signing him to one-year deals, which is fine. He is a Dodger, and he shouldn't be anywhere else. So, got a lot of pitching depth. The lineup, obviously, from top to bottom is going to be a problem for teams. But, are they going to be the first team to repeat since the Yankees? Are they going to be able to do that? They definitely can. It's a long season, though. Injuries are going to come up. I think they should definitely win over 100 games. Should be an interesting 2 games. You know, obviously, if the Cubs sweep the Dodgers, it's not like, oh wow, the Cubs are better than the Dodgers this year now. Yeah, baseball, it's a marathon. You're gonna have your highs and your lows. And as a Yankee fan, I experienced a lot of that last year. Because you see on social media how everybody loved the team from last year, but I remember in July we were not saying that about that team because they were really struggling. Everybody goes through it. The Dodgers went through a rough stretch last year. Everybody goes through it. Everybody goes through it. It's a long season. It's a long season. And obviously, you got the trade deadline, so the team that you start out with is not going to be exactly the team you finish with, depending on what you decide to do at the deadline, if you're selling or not. But now you have less teams selling because there's more playoff spots up for grabs. So, like I said, we will take a look at these games the following day. Might sprinkle in, what happened in the games during the shows. But yeah, it's overseas. Doesn't line up with our times. I mean, 6 o'clock in the morning. That was when I would get up to go to school, and don't do that as much. Thankfully, I mean, at some point it will happen again when I have to get up that early. But right now, I haven't had to do that, and there's a thing called DVR, so we're gonna do that. So let me know what you guys think though about the Tokyo series. What are you most excited for that? Baseball is back tomorrow, and then of course everybody will start officially next Thursday, and we will make sure to do predictions for divisions and things like that. So we're going to take our final break of the show now, and then when we come back, we will talk about the Rams, give a season overview on their year, and we'll take a look at what they've done in the offseason. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.